Okay, so I'm gonna wait for people to get on here. If you're watching this after the fact, then you're gonna see everything that I'm doing right now. Get people on here. This is not what we're working on in this video, but I wanted to kind of match things up while I'm waiting. Let's see as people get on here. There's one person. I didn't really tell a bunch of people I was going to go live today, so I don't know how many people are going to log in and say what's up, but we'll see what happens. That's going to match up nice. Let's see here. Tutorials on knives, on laughing. No, so I'm not just going to be doing the tutorials on knives on the live streams. I'm going to be doing everything else. I've been working on a bunch of other stuff, trying to get ready for the Samurai Challenge, and I've been still working on this in the process. But this video will be going out on Tuesday, so this will be done. All I've got left is to profile the little medallion pieces. They're already hammer finished and all that. I just got to finish profiling them, doing the last couple of things to them, and then painting this over. The guard has already been soaked in the vinegar, so all the forge scale has been taken off of it. All I need to do is gun blue it and then Scotch Brite it. Same thing with the two little pendants there. Gun blue them, Scotch Brite them, and then painting that tang over, and that'll be done. So I'll be working on that today off the live stream, and then get this build wrapped up, get it sharpened, chop some stuff with it, have a blast, but it's looking real good. That's not what we're doing on this video, but I figured I'd go ahead and put it together so I can see how things are lining up, like fitment wise. You know, I still gotta adjust the guard piece right here just a little bit, or the pendant just a little bit, and we won't have any gapping in there. There's a hair of a gap around there, so I've got to adjust that just a little bit, and I'll do that after I've turned it into a medallion. So after I grind the outside of it down, and then everything will fit nice and tight. And everything fits tight here, which doesn't really matter that much because the tang's going to be pinged over, and it would block any gapping or anything like that. But that is not what we're working on. That's not what we're working on today. And yeah, that is a big knife. So when it comes to the live streams, I've been really enjoying these, but this is not the only way y'all are going to see me actually do this. It's just been really helpful to come out here and talk to y'all whenever I'm doing stuff. Like today, we need to grind the bevels into this awesome integral knife that I've been working on in the background. And I'm going to show you the way that I'm going to grind the bevels on this, which are going to be a little bit different than you've seen me grind bevels on knives before. Now, the nice thing about this knife is it was forged very straight, so I don't really have to come in here and do any real profiling on the edge of the bevels to straighten anything out. So what I'm going to do, we're going to grind into them. I'm going to be using these 3 belts. So we've got 36 grit, 60 grit, and 120 grit for this process here. And I'm actually going to be hand sanding from the 120 grit. I'm not going to go up any higher than that. We're going to start hand sanding from that because it's not a very wide blade. It's going to be pretty easy to hand sand. Going from 120 is going to be fine. So that's what I'm going to do with that. But today we're going to go ahead and grind the bevels on this, and I'm going to tell you what I'm doing in the process so that y'all can get a little tutorial action with it. And then on Tuesday, you'll get the how I did the D-guard fully in it. And then I'm trying to still figure out exactly what day I want to do the other live stream on. I know that I'm going to be doing it on Sundays just because I'm absolutely off on Sundays, and a lot of y'all actually watching my channel on Sundays. So I figured I'll go ahead, live stream on Sunday, and then I haven't decided whether I'm going to live stream on Tuesday evenings because you're already watching on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, or Saturday. I don't know. I've been doing it on Thursdays, but my wife has a job where she teaches dance, and that happens to go on until like 7:45 on Thursdays now. So she took it, and it kind of interferes with the whole live stream on Thursdays. So I've got to figure out a different day. So we're gonna have Sunday plus a different day plus your normal videos that release on Tuesday for the Shop Talk Tuesdays. So you're gonna have a lot of content. And my goal for that is to have that happen throughout the rest of this year. You know, as we're getting into the cooler days. I do still have the fan going on in here because it's still a little warm today. It was like 99, 100 degrees yesterday, which is ridiculous because a few days ago it was like in the 70s. So yeah, this one right here, this was my forged integral that I did for myself, where I actually forged the handle, everything in there, rounded everything, and did all of that. This is going to be my own little knife that I'm going to cut my steaks up with because I love making steak knives that I'm going to use. I eat a lot of steak. It's my favorite type of food to eat. So I'm going to end up setting y'all up here. We're going to go ahead, start grinding, and we're going to be talking while we're doing it. Now, the difference between, so that's not screaming at y'all. So that's not going to be able to be done in this. So if this is really loud, all you got to do is just turn your own volume down a little bit and you'll be fine. But I get a lot of people who ask me, of course, about grinding bevels and things like that. So I figured this would be the perfect time to go ahead and explain it because I'm going to be grinding the bevels in this by default. And I know that a lot of people want to know what to do, especially when you're going to try and freehand grind. So because this is built the way it is, I can't use a plunge line jig. I can't use a bevel jig. You can't use any of that stuff. So you have to be able to get used to how you grind this freehand. And you got to be able to pair it up so your plunge lines match on both sides. Now, with this particular blade right here, it's going to have a sweeping plunge line, which means it's going to be coming down at an angle through here. It's not going to be, I'll show you on this other one here. It's not going to be like this, where it comes up and then over. It's going to sweep forward because of the way that we're actually grinding it. So it's going to sweep forward and it's going to blend into the forged area right here. So whenever you're doing this, let me turn this on for a second. Now y'all know what to adjust your volume to on your phones or however you're watching this. So whenever I'm doing this, I'm going to have this belt overhang or overhung, whatever, off the side here about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch because we want it to flex just a little bit whenever we're grinding up into the plunge line area. We don't want to get a super hard plunge line. We want it to kind of flex up into it. Now, a 36 grit belt's only going to flex so much, so you got to think through that. But we're just going to be coming in here because, especially with the bevels already being semi-forged, we're going to come in here light pressure, and I'm actually going to be coming in at an angle about like this and pulling across. Most of the time you see me do an angle about like this, or you see me pull across straight. This is going to be at a steeper angle right here because I want all of this area back here. Let's pull up here. I want all this area up to here to be part of the bevels because I still want it to be super slicey in this area here. So it's going to come up from here and then down forward. Okay? That's the goal there. So we're going to be coming in at an angle here, light pressure, and pulling across. I have a lot of people that have issues with their bevels and trying to correct them later and things like that. And it's because they come up to their belt and they're trying to hog off a bunch of material, so they're really pushing into this belt and then dragging, and then they're wondering why they're getting waves in their blade. And it's because that initial push is really hard, and then they'll try and pull back a little bit as they pull across. So then they'll be grinding in this area, or they'll get an area where it just dips down and creates a divot, and then they try and chase that out. And in the process of chasing that out, you mess with how high you wanted to bring your bevels up, the transition between your bevels and your flats. You mess up a whole bunch of stuff, and then you got to move it to the other side. And when you start doing it on the other side, you're trying to counteract each other, and it doesn't give you the look that you're looking for. So you need to be able to come in and be consistent pressure whenever you're doing this. This is a little bit different than whenever we come in here and we just twist our hips and do that. When you're doing this and we want to come up, you can just move your hips to the side if you want to, but I'm going to come up at an angle a little bit. So pull up with this arm, back arm, up and rock, up and rock, up and rock. If you're trying to wonder how to do a chef's knife grind, so whenever we're going to be grinding chef's knives, we don't want a deep plunge line. We want everything to flow in together. We're doing the same thing. We're coming in here at a steep angle like this, and we're grinding in those bevels. That's how you're going to do a chef's knife. Some people you will come in like this and then grind it. And they're grinding at that steep of an angle on a chef's knife. Okay? And a lot of that's because they're trying to thin that steel out and keep it straight. The hard part about a chef's knife is you have to grind it super thin. And if you're doing that this way, you're really risking grinding one area too deep than the other. And then you're chasing the bevels again. So for this, we want to come across and pull across the same way we would do a chef's knife. All right? It's a little bit different than a Scandi grind. Scandi grind, you can come across and do like this, and it'll be perfectly fine. Saber grind, come across just like this, it'll be fine. Same thing. Let's go ahead and jump into grinding a little bit. That way you can see how much belt I have hanging. One of the things that you'll notice as I'm doing this, I'm not starting at the plunge line and pulling away. I'm starting somewhere towards the center, and then I'm pushing into the plunge line, and then I'm pulling up to the tip, pushing into the plunge line, pulling through to the tip. I'm not going plunge line, tip, every single pass. And that's because, again, I'm not trying to create a hard line in that plunge line. I just want to smooth up into it, smooth up into it. So that's the way we're going to start whenever we're doing this particular type of grind. Okay, so now I'm comfortable with where the blade's edge is on this side. I'm gonna switch it over. I'm gonna go ahead and grind the other side and get the edge thickness down to where I want it to be for this type of knife. And then we'll go ahead and bring those bevels up the rest of the way. Okay, so now we got that edge as thin as I want it to be. Now we can go ahead and focus on bringing the bevels up and going from there. Now this is how thick I want the edge for this particular belt. As I do the next belts, it'll bring it down thinner and thinner and thinner until we get down to a 0 edge. And then as we hand sand it, we'll just keep going more and more 0 as we do that. And that way I got to put the smallest bevel possible on here. If possible, what I want to do is after it's all said and done, after the hand sanding, I really want to be able to just leather strop it and that be the edge. So we're going to see how that goes. I've done that on a few knives. I've done it on my Wakazashis and a few things like that to where it was already razor sharp just off the hand sand going up. So I think I went to like 800 grit or 1,000 grit on that particular build. And it was razor sharp after the hand sand. So now we've got everything good there. Edge looks nice and smooth. One of the things to think about when you got a forged blade like this is the way that you forged it. So let's say like on this particular one right here, just in this area right here, not the full width of the blade, but just this area where the transition line is right now, that's a hair wider than the side over here. Now the spine comes out to a nice even thickness and everything like that, but there is a little bit of a bump out on this side. So as I'm grinding this area is going to grind up faster than this does because this is flatter, so it's going to take a little bit more. This is going to come into contact with the belt way more often in this area here. So what you want to do, grind this side first, bring that bevel up to where you're going to bring it up to because it has the little bump out. This side we're going to take and do it second because we can just match this to whatever happens over here way easier. Okay? And ask questions if you're wondering certain things that I'm talking about and it's not getting explained well enough. Ask questions in the comment section. I'll answer it as I go through. Remember, this right here is already heat treated, so I got to keep it nice and cool whenever we're doing this. Can you say, if that's your name, I'm going to say it wrong, Mayabella? 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 Yeah. Okay, so whenever we're grinding this, you can see in the area where I was talking about being kind of bumped out a little bit, the bevel is grinding up there a lot faster than it's grinding the tip or in the plunge line area. We're kind of going up into that. You don't need to chase that if you're doing a forged knife. Just keep doing your thing, and as you get past it, it will even itself out. Now, one of the things to remember about a blade like this, whenever we're getting up to that tip, we need to kind of rock your hand that's holding the handle back a little bit. And what that's going to do is that's going to bring that transition line right there up. So we're not just pulling straight across. Whenever we get to that tip, we're going to kind of pull away. This is an over-exaggeration. We're just going to kind of pull away, and it's going to bring that grind up. All right, see, now we're past that little bump out that was right there. What'll start happening is all this will even out as we come across. Now, on this particular belt, we're only going to be going up to about right here on there. And then as we progress up through the other belts, it'll bring it up the rest of the way. So some of y'all might be interested in how long it actually takes to do stuff like this, and will be interested in watching the whole entire live stream. But you can see why I kind of time lapse through a lot of this particular stuff, because a lot of it is me going back and just checking things, straightening things back up, you know, bringing things up to where I want it to be, lining things back out. So it's a lot of me grinding gently, checking, grinding gently, checking, and then going from there. But, you know, whenever you want to make your blade nice, straight, and perfect, you got to take the time to grind it and be gentle with it, especially if you're already heat treated. Okay, and if you're wondering how I'm keeping everything matched up on both sides, like with the way that I'm doing my plunge and all that stuff, on this particular belt, because the 36, you can see all the grind lines in there. I can see them on the other side too. So all I'm doing is, you'll see me kind of come up to here and kind of rock it a little bit. I'm just following the striation on the blade where I've already ground. So I know to come in, okay, that's not the right angle, perfect, parallel. They're just parallel to the side of the platen, and then I start grinding. That's what's going to keep everything nice and even. And then from that point forward, we'll have a nice visual line to follow with the other belts. So now we just got to go ahead, grind the other side, go from there. What I'm going to do for the sake of this video, because I know that I'm going to make this side match this side, I'm just going to continue to grind this. Y'all aren't seeing me grind for an hour and a half. Unless y'all want me to grind both sides while I'm doing this. So now I'm going to go ahead and jump up to the 60 grit. Should go in the right direction. So 60 grit, we're going to take and refine it just a little bit, bring up that transition line just a hair, and then on the 120 we'll bring it up the rest of the way. Same thing, hanging the belt off the side here, about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. And it's more important now than before to make sure you keep the blade cool while you're going up to the finer grit belts, because the blade's going to heat up faster because the belt's going to heat up faster. And you'll risk messing up your heat treat. Okay, so now I'm comfortable with how high I brought those up. So now we're going to go ahead and switch to 120. And as we're doing this, again, the edge thickness is getting thinner and thinner. You gotta think about it. I haven't even finished the 36 on this side or the 60. And that's how thin we are with our edge right now. So whenever I do both of those, it's going to bring it down even further. So we're going to do 120 on this side, and then I'll end up switching to the other side, grinding them, and by that point, we'll have close to a zero edge before we even start hand sanding. And then once we do our Scotch-Brite belt, which we'll do that after the 120, that'll kind of blend a few things together, and then we'll do the hand sanding course after that. On this 120, I am putting very, very, very light pressure on this. Enough pressure to keep contact, but we're not pushing in. This belt will heat this blade up super fast if you start trying to hog off material with it. So that's not what the higher grits are for. They're not for hogging off material. They're for smoothing and refining. Okay? The 120 is not a super high grit. If you're at 400 grit, you absolutely don't want to push into the belt very hard. That will smoke your blade. One of the other things that I should say, whenever we're doing this plunge line like this, whenever I did the 36 grit, it finished down here. When I did the 60 grit, it finished up here. 120, it finishes here. What that's going to do is by default, get rid of those deep grind lines that are in that plunge area. So I've brought it back, especially when you're trying to do a nice sweeping plunge line that doesn't really step down super hard. It does come down into the bevels, but it's almost non-noticeable. It just rounds in nice and smooth. So all I'm doing is each time I go up a grit, I'm bringing that plunge line back, like a 1/16 of an inch each time. Just in case some of y'all are still newer to knife making, how I'm bringing the bevels up and bringing them up to where I want to transition. All I'm doing there is coming in here, and in order to draw the bevel up on the blade, you want to do more pressure on the spine. Again, you're looking at this, belts here. You start off here, you need to slowly move that spine. Move that spine to where it's going to actually bring the side of the bevels to be more in contact with that belt. As we move it more towards the spine, we're going to grind up higher on the bevels. That's the whole way that we're doing that. So with this one, because it's not a super tall blade, all I'm doing is kind of controlling that more with this hand than this. I'm just doing pressure on this hand, especially when we get up to the higher grit. And I'm just rocking it more with my right hand or my left hand and pulling across, and using this just more for just added pressure as we pull through. And that's just bringing our bevels up higher and higher. And with this being a forged blade, it's never going to have like a super crisp line transition between the bevels and this, because it's not machined flat. But whenever we go through with the Scotch-Brite belt, it will blend this line in together to where all you see is the transition being the actual texture that's in there. So that is good for our 120. Now all I'm going to do is come in here and make sure everything's nice and good. Got a little bit of extra grind lines right there by that edge, so I'm going to smooth that out. Is it a huge deal to do what I just did? No, but it is going to make it easier to sand later. So now, Scotch-Brite belt. This is just a blue Scotch-Brite belt. They come in like brown, blue, gray. That's the different coarseness of the belts. It's just a blue one. On the Scotch-Brite belts, I don't hang anything over the edge of the platen. I want to be able to come in contact with the belt everywhere nice and evenly. So I'm not going to sag this over either side. It's just going to be square to the platen. So that is pre-hand sanding. You see how there's a little bit of a wave right here on this. You can see the different little sheen line that goes up through here. That's going to get taken out whenever we're doing our hand sanding. You see it right there, that little bit of a wave right there. I'm not going to chase that on the 2x72 because I could risk messing that up even more. So there's another little bitty wave right here. And because I'm going to be using a hard sanding stick, that first time I do 220 over this, it's going to make that nice and crisp. These lines right here are real easy to get rid of in hand sanding because they go this way, okay? If you had a divot here that went this way, so let's say it went straight and then it kind of dipped down and then straight, that's different. You need to get that out in the grinder. If it dips here, it needs to get out with the grinder because as you're sanding across this, what's going to happen is you're going to sand down into that dip. You're going to sand down into that dip every single time you pull across here. With ones that are like this, that run parallel to the edge, parallel, okay, those are easy to get out with sanding because you're pulling all the way across those and you're blending everything in together, all right? So if it's a divot in the center from where you accidentally touched the belt too hard in one spot and you didn't get it ground out, you can go back to the grinder and grind that out. Or if you have a disc grinder, that will grind that out. So lines going this way. If it's very, very subtle, let it be. It'll fix itself in the sanding as long as you're using a hard backer. If it's a divot, don't do it. Grind it out the rest of the way. Get it nice and even, so that as you pull through there, you'd be able to see it in this sheen right here. If I had a dip, it would show in that real easily. So we don't have any dips. We can go ahead and hand sand. And now you can see how it transitions up into that. So we don't need to bring it up full to the spine because the bevels were already forged and all we did was refine them. So our spine is going to be nice and thin, especially whenever I get done grinding this side. That's going to make a nice thin tip all the way down there because it pretty much starts back here and goes all the way to the tip. So we'll be able to slice easily into things. So that right there are the bevels on this. The only thing I need you to do now is just repeat that process on the other side. I'll do that off camera, clean it up. One of the things that I need to do after this process right here, okay, so once we finish this process, grinding the bevels, this is going to be maker's mark. So I'll put a maker's mark on it, and then I'll go ahead and vinegar soak it. So we still have forge scale all the way around the handle area. You can see some of it right here, a little bit of it right there. That vinegar soak, 30% vinegar, will pull all that forge scale off. We want to do that before we go through and hand sand so that we get everything off, everything cleaned up. And then once we do that, then we'll hand sand it, and then it will get soaked in vinegar again, and then, but for a lesser time, and then it'll get Scotch-Brighted back to a satin finish. The reason why I'm doing vinegar soak as opposed to an acid etch is vinegar is vinegar. It's not super hard on your body. You know, apple cider vinegar is a thing, all that stuff. People drink vinegar on all kinds of different things. As opposed to the acid etching and the ferric chloride. I don't want a dark etch or anything like that. I want it to be a nice satin finish and for it to look real nice. Excited about this one because 5160 develops really nice patina whenever you actually cut into steaks. So I really want to see what that looks like, you know, a year down the road of eating steaks and this slicing through it. So, there we go. Guys, if y'all have any questions, I'm going to give y'all 5 minutes of question time before I just bounce out of here. Like I said, I'm going to be going through and doing the rest of these steps during this. I don't know if I'm going to be doing... I know that I'm going to have one live stream about the hand sanding process for this, and I think that I might have a live stream. y'all let me know. Y'all want me to live stream the Maker's Mark on here and actually talk about what I use to do the Maker's Marks? Y'all want me to actually have that in a live stream so that I can talk about what I use to do my Maker's Mark, my stencils, and things like that, because my wife made the stencils that I use my Maker's Mark for. So I can have a live stream where I talk about the Maker's Mark, which is the best part about the live streams, because I can focus on things like that as opposed to doing a whole entire video about it. So I can live stream the Maker's Mark, I can live stream the hand sanding and choices behind what sandpaper I use, what liquid I use to keep it from gumming the sandpaper up, things like that. And then we can talk about the sharpening on a live stream and go through that particular process, so y'all can know exactly what belts I use, what brand, who does the leather stropping belt, all that stuff. I can break all those processes down on this build because it's my build. I don't care how fast I do this, so I can wait on it and just talk about it as we go through this whole entire process. If y'all are interested in that, let me know. Again, you'll be able to comment on this video after the fact. You don't have to comment right now. Some of y'all might not give a damn and you watch whatever I put out anyways. So you're like, I don't care. Yes, do that. But if y'all want me to actually focus on those things, because I've had people ask me in the past to actually do something about my Maker's Mark setup, because it's something that you can easily replicate. You do not have to go out and buy like a $300 setup. You can spend like $60 and do it just how I do it, and it's not that complicated. It's very easy, and the parts and stuff are cheap in comparison to like a $300 Maker's Mark setup. So you got that, and then the same thing when it comes to hand sanding. I can actually do, because in an hour I can teach y'all a lot about hand sanding, what I do, what backers I use, things like that, as opposed to in a video I can only spend X amount of time on the hand sanding process. I can only spend X amount of time on the Maker's Mark process. I can only spend X amount of time on those different processes. Even though I get into detail, the live streams are for a lot of detail. So, if you're interested in that, we'll call it there. But, again, one of the things to think about is in the future, I will be doing my live streams a little bit different. It's going to be like 2 months from now. But we are going to have it set up to where my office will be in the shop that's behind me right here. And I'm going to have big doors on this wall right here. So whenever I'm explaining certain things, I'll be at my desk in there. And then we'll come out here, work in the shop, almost like it's a podcast. So I'm going to be talking about more than just the thing. I'm going to give y'all some backstory on stuff. I'm going to give y'all some of the science behind things. I'm going to give y'all a lot of different things so that it is a teaching moment and you understand everything about it. So if we're doing the heat treat process, we're going to actually talk about oxidization, martensite, stuff like that. We're going to talk about those things because I know a lot of people don't want to read books. So I'm going to try my hardest to do all of that learning and educating myself to then educate y'all. So we're going to have podcasts, live streams for that. And then we'll come out here, we'll do some work, explain the thing in the process, point at the things that I'm talking about, show y'all exactly what it is, and then go from there. That way it's an education moment and y'all get a free education on knife making that doesn't cost y'all any money anywhere. There you go. Guys, let's go ahead, let's end it here. I'm going to go inside, grab me some lunch, come out here, finish working on this bolo. Y'all have an amazing day. Stay safe out there and I'll catch y'all next time.